welcome. Tonight on Gospel XL, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And specifically, the good things, good behavior, good emotions that we have, or the bad things, bad behavior, and I put those in quotes, that give us an ugly picture of God. So let's talk about that.
Hi. So we have with us our friend Ryan, and Ryan's here to tell us a story about some things that have gone on in his life and how he's grown and wandered through life.
Well, yeah, thanks. I grew up in a Christian home, and my parents always were very, they did a good job of helping us understand what it meant to live a Christian life. That included, making positive decisions, the way we, used our money to, they were very open with their policies for how they gave to other people.
Cool.
And it went way beyond money, giving time, even opening their home to strangers, which sometimes was a little scary as a little kid, but hey, it all worked out. God took care of us.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the way, I developed this idea, and I can't even pinpoint exactly how it happened, but I developed this idea that if I did not specifically financially give a certain amount of money to my church organization, that God would actually look down and say, "Oh, you didn't meet the quota this month. I am removing my hand of blessing."
Oh, snap.
And see, we have 4 kids. We're a single income family. Money is never in abundance. And so I thought, oh man, if I don't give this month, my car's going to break down. And then what am I going to do? I don't have money to fix it. Or, a kid's going to get sick and I don't have money for that. So I've got to make sure I give.
So you actually, those words ran through your head.
Absolutely.
With these things.
Absolutely. And it kind of became, I don't want to say debilitating, but it started to, create this view of a God who, was up there with a checklist that was saying,
Sure.
all right, are you living, and it started to leak over into other areas of life. And so when things started to fall apart and things weren't going just how I didn't think, badly, whether it be financially or something else, I'd first of all, okay, did I miss some income, that I need to give on, or, did I watch too much TV, or was I not faithful enough with my devotions and things like that. And, I think God can maybe use some of those things to get our attention, but at the same time, it was, I think, a very unhealthy, it started to change, just the way I related to God and the way I related to my church community and everything else. I was suddenly putting in all this time is like, okay, I got to make up for it by giving all my time, to teaching Sabbath school and, doing music and running the AV and, being an elder, whatever, all this stuff. And as I kind of started meeting with you guys on a regular basis. It actually started earlier, probably a couple of years ago, when Shayne and I started meeting as a part of a DNA group, which is a small group of guys that get together and we talk about the gospel and we share and we kind of learn and grow together. We started reading some material, looking at the Bible, and it started changing my view of saying, seeing a God who's not up there exacting, oh, did you check you missed that income, to a God who, more than anything else, just wants to hang out with me, just wants to be with me. And
that sounds so shallow.
But it's so deep.
Well,
unless you look at it in the context of a relationship.
Right.
Because there's nothing that my wife loves more. Her love language is time spent together, is connection. And to just hang out sounds really shallow when you have this system that you may have been following that is, chucked full of all these things to do. And now we're just hanging out. And so it seems like, really? That's all you do? What kind of a shallow Christian are you?
Well, And the cool thing was, is that as that view of God began to shift, it didn't necessarily change what we gave, but it did change how and with what attitude. And it became more of a family thing. And giving now is a joy. And it's fun to find ways to make a difference in people's lives, rather than saying, oh, I've got to check this off the list or I'm not going to be blessed by God.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, and God blessed us. Even when I had a diluted and an inaccurate view of him, God continued to bless. I mean, we didn't all, we didn't die. We didn't ever.
You still have 4 kids.
We still have 4 kids.
Didn't start with 5 and now down to 4. You still have them all.
We
Good.
didn't, lose our house or anything like that.
Yeah.
And God has continued to bless. Because now it's about how can we, show our appreciation to God by blessing others in the way that Jesus did when he was here on earth, whether it be, in any way, whether it's financial, with our time, with our, our resources, whatever it is that we have.
Sure. So yeah, thanks Ryan for giving us a little picture of the story. And what we're hoping to do as we continue with Gospel XL is to actually share different stories of our church family and how they have learned different things, experienced God in different ways. So we're hoping to continue to bring them in. So I appreciate the time that you've given us. He's going to step off the stage now and go the other direction. So let's talk real quick about last week, because this is a continuation. This is the thing behind the thing, part 2.
Yeah, so part 1, we talked about what is sin, and usually we think of sin as things that we're doing.
Sure.
But we're coming to find that sin is things that we believe and lies that we believe about God, and how that it definitely impacts what we do, or how we experience life. Just like Ryan said, he's not necessarily giving more or less, but he's giving from a different place in his heart versus a requirement. So, just looking at what is sin, it's not necessarily things that we've done wrong, and God didn't send Jesus to with the primary purpose of stopping our bad behavior. He sent Jesus with the primary purpose of showing who he is and restoring that trust relationship with him.
Yeah, because I think we talked a little bit about it last week, that actions and behaviors and just thoughts and whatnot that are not from faith are a sin.
Anything that's not from faith.
So if you're able to accept that, I mean, that's a pretty deep thing. But just this idea of the lies that we believe about God and ourselves and how they affect our behavior goes pretty deep. They play out in us either doing good or bad or negative things. But if you look at it, if they're based on lies, if the good things and or the negative things, the bad behaviors that we have, the bad emotions that we have, if those are based on a lie, then ultimately the picture of God is really ugly. So that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Is the picture of God that it creates. And if it's not accurate to God, then we don't want to be holding on to it. So we're going to look at a couple of examples. Sylvia is going to grab the good examples that we might do that are based on untruth.
Yes. So this might be kind of shocking because these are good things.
Lay them on me. What do you got?
Being nice.
Yep.
If I am required to be nice, I see God as demanding. I am not acting out of a true self of who I am, and I can become very resentful for all the nice things I have to do.
Yeah.
Being nice.
Being nice.
Being humble.
Because humility is a good thing,
is
right?
Great.
Humility is a good thing. That's
Yes.
a Christian virtue.
Yes, it is.
So tell me why
All right.
that good
So
thing
sometimes we
is-
hear humbleness coming across as, well, I don't know if I'm going to make it to heaven. I don't know if, no, that's not the humility that the Bible is speaking of. And when you are humble in that way, you're actually saying
Sure.
some pretty nasty things about God, because he is the one that saves.
Yeah. And the one that told you ultimately, Sylvia, you're mine.
Yes.
If we're in this relationship, I'm going to take care of it. You just need to believe it. And what you just said to me was, I don't really believe it.
I don't
I
believe
don't know. I don't know if you're.
I don't know if you're
you
able.
got this. If you're bigger than the bad things that I do, if you're bigger than my
Yeah.
sin, I don't know. So okay. What else?
Health, good health,
What ebs?
being healthy,
Is
eating healthy.
you're saying that's not a.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
It's
Okay.
a good thing.
Yes, but
But it can be taken in a very bad direction. It can be taken in an ugly direction, where we view that, God's not going to love me, God's not going to accept me unless I meet these standards.
Sure.
And he's, again, very exacting, and I'm going to prove to you how much I love you, God, because I'm going to just sacrifice all these things that I love
Yeah.
to eat. But I'm not going to eat them for your sake, God.
that was very nice of you.
Yeah,
Wait, we're not supposed to be nice? You just said that.
I just said.
Don't be nice, people.
Yep. Giving. That's what Ryan
Ryan just
talked
said,
about. Definitely. Giving is a great thing. Giving is definitely what Christ came and he gave his whole life for us.
Yeah.
Giving is good. But giving can be out of requirement, out of obligation,
Out of fear.
out of fear, trying to prove something.
Yep.
None of those things are healthy or produce a healthy picture of God.
Yeah.
Going to church.
Now you're stepping on
Going to
toes.
church.
Going to church. You're
Going
telling
to
me
church.
going to church is a good thing that's
It's
a
a good
bad
thing.
thing.
Maybe.
A good bad thing. A bad good thing? How about a
Maybe.
bad good thing?
Might be. It
Okay,
depends
tell me how.
Okay, so if I'm going to church, again, because I'm afraid that God won't bless me if I don't go, if
Okay.
I'm doing it out of fear or obligation,
Sure.
it's not a good thing. If I am going because I learn more of God there, I learn of the gospel there, I can connect with God's people, totally different story.
But I'm going because I feel like that's what I have to do. Like that's what Christians do, right? They go to church, they pray, they read their Bible. These are things that if you're going to claim the name,
Better
then,
do it.
Yeah, you got to
Play
do
the
it.
game.
Oh, that was nice. If you're going to claim the name, then you better play
Better
the
play
game.
the game.
Okay, so does that tie into this, the bad good thing? If it's that way, if I'm going to church because, man, I feel like, it's one thing you're supposed to do, and if I don't go to church, then I feel guilty.
Then I'm probably not a Christian.
Well, maybe I'm a Christian with just a lot of guilt
Okay. Yeah.
because I'm
Or I'm
supposed
afraid
to
that
go,
I won't be actually a Christian.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that is tied to an ugly picture of God.
Truth.
So for some people, going to
Yeah.
church is not acting in faith.
Is a
for
bad,
other
good thing.
people, going to church is acting in faith.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about some of the bad or negative. When I say bad, I'm not meaning morally wrong, although some of them may be, but I'm just going with the bad or negative behaviors or emotions. Fear and worry is something that I think we strive at. It's something that we thrive on, worrying about this or that. But the bad part of that is the picture that it's giving of God. If I am allowing a lie that I believe about God, that He doesn't have this. He's
incapable.
He's incapable of this. Therefore,
Yeah.
I need to worry about it. I mean,
Yeah.
this plays out a lot in my job. My job is an operations manager, and I have to manage a whole bunch of things all at the same time. I mean, I have to keep my goal is to try to keep things moving smoothly with 9 other employees that we have, and I'm trying to work on that with our clients and with our jobs and with our employees and with our parts and everything. And worry can slip in there really quick and easy, where I just feel like things are about to come crashing down. I'm afraid that, when I think about the different clients that we have and my guys going to this client, I'm worried about what's going to happen there. Are things going to go well? Are we going to run into things? That's not necessarily, we don't necessarily think of that as, well, shame on you, Shayne, you're being bad right now. But worry is not an emotion or a state of mind that God said He wanted us in. He said He wanted us to be free of fear. Don't fear. Don't worry. Cast your anxieties on me. I got this. So that's a bad thing, because it gives me a picture of an incapable, or inept God, that He can't handle it. So I have to do it. And man, I got to pick up the slack for you too, God. We don't say that, but it is.
But that's behind the thing.
Yeah, that's the thing behind the thing. A sense of defeat, I think, is also where we feel like we're never going to be good enough. I'm never going to, these things that I hear the preachers talk about, or that I see my neighbors doing, or my other Christian friends, brothers and sisters. I'm not doing that. So I have this sense of defeat. And again, that is a incorrect and inaccurate view of God, because it's not up to me.
Right.
And God isn't looking at me, comparing it to somebody else and going, "You're right, Shayne.
You don't got it.
You do not have it, but he does, or she does."
Right.
So that's an ugly picture of God, that we would have a God that would do that.
Right.
People pleasing, having this sense of that I have to please these people because what they say about me, what they think about me, is important.
And more important than what God has said.
Exactly. Yeah. That the ugly lie behind that is that their opinion's way more than God's.
They're weightier. They're weightier, more important.
Yeah. Exactly. 2 really quick ones that I can also think of is being stingy, being afraid to give more. Because
God
I have
might not provide.
Yeah, exactly. We have this picture of, hey, if I share too much of what I have, then that means I have less, which is not a picture of an abundant God.
Right.
This is a picture of a God that has limited resources. So therefore, I have to hold on to them very carefully, and He gave them to me, and I want to be a good steward, so I'll give you a little bit, but not too much, because even God has limits to His pockets, or however you want to look at it. Controlling, another one that we can all look at and go, ooh, that's not a good thing. But what's the lie behind controlling? When we feel like we have to control a situation, we have to control people, what's the lie behind that?
There could be several lies. Like if you're trying to control children, your own children.
I don't. I gave up on that
a
couple years ago.
Yeah. But when we feel that we need to have the perfect family, it's, God's not going to accept us.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with fear of people also, that, I'm not going to fit in. Their opinion counts more than God's.
Yeah.
But also that if I have to control, then obviously I don't believe that God's in control.
Sure.
He's incompetent.
Yep.
He's not all powerful.
Or another way of looking
uncaring.
He's uncaring. He's not involved.
Yeah.
He's removed himself,
away.
And he's just kind of, it's all on you.
You
and
better
a God that abandons us too.
Yeah.
So all of these are, good things or bad things, but they all give this ugly picture of God. But we wanted to expose these lies. And so I'm gonna read to you something real quick that I've come to really appreciate in 2 Corinthians. And again, a reminder that we do this Facebook Live thing because we want interaction. We want your questions on the topic of what we're talking about. We're not the answer people. We don't have all the answers. But all we're doing is sharing. This is the new things that we're learning about God and how they've impacted our lives. And we'd love to share them with you. So if you have questions in regard to that, throw them in the comments and we'll try to answer as many as we can. So here's 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5, in regard to the lies that we believe about God or about ourselves that lead to, incorrect pictures and bad good behavior or bad behavior.
Yeah.
So 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5 says this: "We demolish arguments and every pretense that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ." Tell me one more time. "We demolish every argument and every pretense that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ." So this idea that we may think of that if you read that. If you've read that before, you may have thought, hey, this is about those things that are anti-Christ, those things that are against God. But so are these things.
Yeah, and so many of these things were things you would consider Christian.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But they're
against
pretenses and strongholds that have our hearts in bondage.
And they're against a God of love. They're
against the picture of
God.
who Christ is.
Yeah.
Christ is a God of freedom, a God of joy, a God of relationship, not a God of lists and a God of white knuckling, to try to appease him, or someone that you have to prove that you love.
Right.
So that's
and he's nearby. He's listening,
Yeah.
paying attention,
yeah.
involved.
So here's, when we were talking about this, I thought about, okay, so how did this happen? How did we start thinking differently to be able to, to notice these things? What are some of the things that we did? And this is just for me. I just came up with 3 really easy things. One of them is know that there's a different way.
Yeah.
And together we have collectively in our church family, we practice this different way. We practice thinking differently. We practice gospeling, if you were to make it a verb, together. And you have a question that I love to think about.
Yeah. So the question is, where have you recognized an opportunity to trust Jesus this week? Where has, there are always opportunities, but we don't always recognize them. So
And we don't always take them.
Just opening your eyes to, I have an opportunity to trust Jesus in this.
Yeah.
And by asking that question, you begin to see, how does this relationship with God actually affect my life? How does it change my day-to-day activities, my choices?
Yeah.
How is it even meaningful?
And
if it's just beliefs out there, what's the point?
So we asked that question to our group, in our gathering, and then we are able to hear how this plays out in each other's lives. And that gives me, this is a different way to think. This is it's a different way to go. It's exposing ourselves more and more to the gospel, to the good news.
Yeah, to bigger pictures.
To the bigger picture of God, yeah. So the first one is just knowing there's a different way and practicing that. The second thing that I've thought of is how to think differently is to start reflecting on my thinking.
Yes.
I start being
Not just
intentional.
Your actions.
Yeah.
But what is it that caused you to have those actions? What kind of beliefs are you holding that create that in your life?
So when I'm in the middle of worry, when I know that knotted up feeling that I have as I'm driving along and I find myself, trying to weave in and out of traffic, and I'm trying to hurry, and I'm, my legs are bouncing all over the place, so I'm sitting at the office, or, I know the state of mind that I've come into, then I can stop and go, okay, what am I thinking? What am I believing? Maybe subconscious, it may, but it's not accurate. Even though I may not be doing it intentionally, that doesn't make it okay to continue.
Right.
So to be able to reflect and to take thoughts captive. And then the third one that I have, the third step into how to think differently, is just start responding differently. When I've been exposed to the gospel, and it happens, I think it happens best in a group, in a community, in a fellowship. we get to hear the gospel, we get to reflect on our thinking, and then we understand that, oh, this is how I can start doing things a little bit differently. But it doesn't happen right away.
No. And some of the ways I brought a little resource today.
Right here. Here it is, people. This is your resource for tonight.
Finding the Father. It's by Herb Montgomery. Herb.
We call him Herb. Those that are close to him call him Herb. You can call him Herb if you like.
Finding the Father. And this is one of the books that I read early on in my process of realizing, I don't have it all together. I don't have all the answers. Where it really began to shake my self-belief and allow me to see that there's a bigger picture out there. There's a bigger God. There's more going on than what I had previously held to be true.
Yeah.
And by exposing myself to different writers, authors, speakers, and just beginning to listen for the gospel, it has definitely broadened my scope and began to provide a bigger picture.
Yeah.
So
allowed us to start acting,
Finding the Father. We'll put that in the link too.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, this isn't something that just happens overnight. This is something that we continue. But the really cool thing about God is that he meets us where we are. So when I'm still in a very shallow place, not to say that's negative, I'm just saying a different place, he's going to meet me there. And as I continue to grow deeper, he's going to meet me there. He's going to meet you wherever you are. And that's the really cool thing about God.
Yeah.
So,
he allows himself to be misunderstood in the midst of the relationship.
Yeah.
Wants us to know him better, but
willing to.
He's willing to hang out.
I feel another episode coming on.
Do
that's
you?
Probably,
what are you feeling?
That's probably going to take that idea and flesh that out just a little bit.
Yeah.
So as we're wrapping up, if you got any questions, now is the time, or we'll still answer them online later on during the week if you come up with a question later. But if you got any, go ahead and throw it in now. But we want to talk about real quick, Sylvia, how has this idea, whether it be just this idea of the thing behind the thing, understanding the inaccurate or lies about God that shape or kind of push, make us do things or respond in different ways. How has understanding all that made a difference in your life?
In my life, I would say much like Ryan, I experienced less resentment because I was busy on that good list. And not that they were bad things.
I was the other way. I wasn't busy on the good list, so I didn't have that problem.
It wasn't that they were bad things, but I was doing them because I had to, out of obligation.
Sure.
And that leads to a lot of resentment. So I have been freed of a lot of resentment, which brings more happiness and peace.
Now, did you recognize it as resentment at the time?
I don't know if I would have put that.
Did you allow yourself to say, God, I resent you right now? Because that's not on the good list, is it?
It's not on the good list.
That should not be on the good list.
Like I mentioned the first week, there were times when I thought, man, I wish I just didn't even know all this.
Yeah.
So that is resentment, but I didn't put that label on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that has definitely freed me. And then the odd thing is that I feel that as I have grown in Christ, I do fewer religious things.
Oh, man.
It's strange because I feel closer to God, but yet...
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by religious things? What's a religious thing?
I have fewer religious requirements in my life. I don't see them as requirements.
There we go. Okay. So
I may still be praying just as much, but I don't have this feeling of guilt. Did I do it enough? Did I,
So you're not measuring. You're not keeping a list.
Measuring it.
You're not going, oh, okay, well, I didn't do Tuesday, so I have to do.
Yeah, what time is it? I better do.
I have got to double my time on Wednesday because I missed
Yeah.
Tuesday because we have to have.
Yeah. And,
Yeah,
you know, there were
yeah.
times where it's like, oh, I'm feeling guilty for not going to church, or I felt guilty for walking into some other denomination's church because. Because you know.
Because the wonderful things he does.
Yeah.
You know, we're.
How about for you?
Well, one of the things that I put on my list when I asked myself that question, you know, how did this make a difference, was to move, like you mentioned, kind of move from religion to more relationship.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I thought that, you know, I was in a pretty good place in a relationship. But so now I'm really excited because I
Yeah.
see that I'm even further into that relationship.
I'd have to say I thought I was in a really good spot with God too, because
Yeah.
I was being
You were being good.
good.
Yeah, I didn't. We're not talking about what I was being.
Yeah.
But yeah, having that sense of moving away from the things you have to do
Yeah.
into more relationship, and even as a youth pastor, I didn't have a lot of lists, but I did have this sense of obligation to make sure that my young people knew, hey, I want you to know about relationship, and I want you to know that Jesus wants that tight connection. But there's
do this.
also, yes, and do this. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying there isn't a place for, you know, for that. I don't want to push that aside, but I just want to put more of the emphasis on the belief that I think love does woo us better than lists, than fear, you know,
And woo is a good word because,
Yeah.
you know, Christ said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto me. So
Yeah.
he intends for us. He made us to be drawn to his love
Yeah.
and to be drawn into that relationship.
And I want to expand on that, just that verse, if I be lifted up. It's too simple to say if you just look at Christ on the cross, you're going to be drawn to him. That might work, but a better way of looking at it is if Christ is exposed in all his glory and all his fullness, then we're going to be wowed. Then we're going to be awed. And we're going to want to, I got to know more about this God. Not just the fact that he died on a cross. That's super huge, but eventually that, I don't know how, but it just kind of wears thin a little bit. You know, if that's it, that's just one facet of it. But if we really lift him up by exposing him and giving him even more glory and bigness, if the picture continues to grow, then yeah, I can't help but be drawn into this, you know, this crazy, wild, loving God.
Yeah.
So what's your so what, who cares?
My so what, who cares is this walking into a relationship rather than requirements brings freedom.
Yeah.
Brings love, brings joy.
Yeah. My so what, who cares is believing a lie actually stunts your growth.
Oh, for sure.
Even if those are good things you're doing,
Yeah.
and you feel like I have these spiritual disciplines, you could be doing spiritual disciplines and not growing in your relationship with Christ. You're just doing.
You're just doing. Yeah.
And not growing. And I believe that
Yeah.
this ability to expose the lie and look for the thing behind the thing is actually a kingdom skill that we need to have. To grow God's kingdom and to be God's kingdom, we have to be able to look at those kind of things and expose those lies. And as Paul says to the Corinthians, oh man, got a little excited there. As Paul says, we demolish these arguments and these pretenses that set themselves up against the knowledge of God. Do I really believe that God is stingy? Do I really believe that God has a list? Is that the kind of God that we see here? If it's not, then we take captive these thoughts and we make them obedient to this God. And I
Good
think
thoughts.
that's a good thing.
So next week, Shayne, how about we
Oh, dear.
talk about the gospel?
Let's
do
think that's
that.
a great. We've talked about the lie or the lies. We talked about belief in the lies.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
the good
what.
news.
Let's talk about what's really good and what we can believe because of.
How do we recognize it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. So same time next week, Friday, 7 o'clock Central Time. Tell your friends, tell your mom. We would love to have you here. If you got any other questions, please make sure you put them into the comment section. We'll pay attention to them and try to answer them. If you have ideas for topics you'd like to hear about how our house church community has dealt with certain things, let us know. And we don't, like I said, we don't have all the answers, but we'll certainly share what we've been learning and the good things that we have. So thanks again for joining us. Have a great evening.
See you later.